Step into analysis, please.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we're talking about the Cradle. I have a theory that I've been working on since the very first episode of this season, that Bernard, the lovable host with the most, is actually the subject to interrogation, that he succumbs to his injuries and is captured or found dead already when Delos armed forces arrive, and that what we're seeing is simply the mind of Bernard being probed for information while inside the Cradle. Before I get started, I want to give an enormous thank you to all of my subscribers. We just passed 12,000 subs, a huge milestone for this channel, and I can't thank all of you enough. I started this channel simply because I kept running out of people to talk theories with at work. I love this show, and the theory crafting conversations that can be created are truthfully one of the most uniquely uplifting experiences in life, and I want other people to enjoy that. I hope you take whatever parts of this theory you believe in and craft your own understanding of how things could occur, and take it to your buddies and blow their minds with the what-ifs to come. I'll be posting videos about Westworld every week and other shows in the future, so I hope you join in on the fun and consider subscribing. But without further ado, let's overthink an HBO show about robots. The theory, which I nicknamed Cats in the Cradle, revolves around a single word easily passed over in episode 3, Cradle. This is the only time the word has ever been used when looking through the scripts, and the next day we received an email giving it further background. A simulator that allows host storylines to be uploaded and tested. When you navigate through the links, you find this infogram stating the Cradle is offline, and it shows what could be two things in my opinion. Either a top-down view of a physical thing of the Cradle, like a room, or a mid to high-level server architecture design, like this is a server that can be uploaded to. With the introduction of this technology, it provides the show writers with a plethora of angles they could explore. The implicit assumption is that you could run a host mind through this machine and get information from their storyline or how they interact with people. Well, I think that's exactly what we're seeing with Bernard right now. I propose that we haven't even seen the present yet, and the 2-week later storyline is actually Bernard's mind being run through the simulator to find out where the data went, or perhaps where the hosts that escaped the park go. So let's look at what we know about the 2-week later timeline. Well, Bernard wakes up on this beach, middle of nowhere, surrounded by glasses and chairs that look like they're from the night of the party, giving the illusion that he wakes up here directly after the massacre. But he wakes up, he doesn't take his glasses, and no longer has a scar on his head from where he shot himself. It's possible Bernard has received a new body at this point, and the programmed variable of needing glasses has been removed. But from the Delos perspective, this man has just survived 2 weeks as a human with no food or water, being hunted by hosts, and I can prove this by looking at the hostility toward the hosts on arrival. They have a very shoot first, remove brain, and ask questions later attitude, and they have an understanding of what went down here. So why is the first thing that Stubbs says, the brass want to talk to you, and not, hey, let's get you looked at by medical professionals, or feed you, or get you out of the clothes that you've been wearing this entire time? The actual interaction of if he were a human would have been much closer to Charlotte. Right off the bat, they tell her that they've been instructed to escort her somewhere, not back into the thick of things, I assume. Sure, it's stated that he's needed to piece together what happened in the 2-week span, which in and of itself is a huge piece to this puzzle, literally saying that we're using you to figure out what happened. But if this was actually Bernard, they would have had some line of dialogue about his well-being, or even getting him checked out at least. As they continue to the forward operating base, Bernard sees hosts being executed. This has been the topic of discussion for some time, but here is what we have to analyze. 6 clips lasting no longer than 22 seconds back to back. First we have Rebus being shot guarding the woman in tan. The next scene pans to him on the ground, and if you look in the background, the woman in tan has already been shot. Then back to Bernard, we see a woman in tan still standing in the background. Another gunshot is heard, killing the woman in tan. Then we see a man scanning to confirm that she's a host, assumed the next in line, and the next clip is another man getting killed before the woman in tan with no Rebus on the ground. So the point this makes is that Bernard is seeing the same event multiple times in different ways even. During the conversation with Carl Strand, the first time ever meeting this person, he finishes the sentence in sync with Carl.
Mr. Lowe, good to see you. So the circumstances are less than ideal.
alluding to the fact that he's done this before. So if Bernard is presently in the Cradle, they're running him through over and over again trying to do something. I believe that they're searching for this big data package, that maybe they're looking for the hosts that are trying to get out or have even gotten out of the park at this point. Carl is unfazed by Bernard finishing the sentence, continues pressing the point of his purpose for being there is to figure out what happens during these 2 weeks. While reviewing the footage of the Ghost Nation Brave, Bernard witnesses 2 scenes of the same person holding the tablet, one with this sandprint and one without the sandprint. I know, it's a sandprint, Hax. It could be a continuity error. Well, it really can't be. Honestly, guys, this was the first episode of Season 2. I'm willing to bet so much time went into this more than maybe any other episode. They would have noticed this in post-production and just picked another scene of someone staring down at this tablet, but instead they choose to pan right across it. This is purposeful. Carl Strand walks away from Bernard, and while he does, he says that it must have been one hell of a party, and Bernard has a flashback to the night of the party. Now, this is important because I believe that this is a trigger they use to affect the times of what he's seeing, and develops from that point. So Bernard has the flashback to the barn. Charlotte is now notably wearing heels, and the first thing she does is start asking questions of Bernard. The woman dies on the outside. Charlotte watches Bernard as opposed to reacting herself. The people start beating up the stable boy. Charlotte again studies Bernard instead of interacting with the group. They escape, and the next time we see them is before the vehicle ambush. Charlotte, now in boots, continues asking Bernard questions, trying to figure out what happened back there, or how far this has spread. Pretty good questions if you were, I don't know, Delos' team trying to retake the island. The people run to the vehicle, and they quickly show Charlotte and Bernard once again. She's just studying Bernard as opposed to looking at the thing that everyone's yelling at. The people die. Next we come to the Delos Research Group outpost hidden here in the park. They scan the DNA sniffer, and Bernard gains entry. Charlotte shows Bernard the screen about not getting help from Delos, making his personal agenda now that of finding Peter. He brings up the mesh network, something that Delos employee Charlotte had no idea of. All of a sudden, boom, successful information for Delos that they didn't know before. Bernard then has a flash forward to Carl and himself finding Ford. Carl flips Ford over and asks if this is jogging his memory at all. Carl pauses and studies Bernard. They next come to the dead tiger and discuss it being there. As they examine it, Carl can be seen very briefly not examining the tiger, but Bernard. They leave for the cluster of hosts that they find in the water, and Stubbs asks where these came from, staring at Bernard. He replies, "I don't know," and Carl has a smirk on his face as though he was expecting that answer. They go down to the water, Carl staring at Bernard while he examines the bodies, again questions what happened here, and getting the answer, of course, being that he killed them all. After this admission of "I killed all these hosts," the next time we see them is in front of the mesa in episode 3, where they state that someone took out the cradle. I believe this is to ensure that Bernard doesn't believe himself to be in the cradle. We as an audience are just now being introduced to this tool, but they've had it. We can assume that Bernard and the employees understand this thing and what it could do. And now that Bernard knows he's a host hiding from humans, the last thing that he would want to do is be in the simulator that's under the control of others. So in front of him, they state that it's broken to maybe just relax him or ease his mind. More questions from Hale, and an examination while she states that she didn't believe Bernard had it in him to survive, asking, "What about you, Bernard? Do you have any idea where Peter Abernathy might have gone?" Using this trigger once again to induce a flashback to when they first found Peter Abernathy. Before the change, she states that he seems to be slipping away from us. The context is that it is of the package, but it could be applied to Bernard's mind as well. Then back in the flashback, a distorted Charlotte voice says, "How are we doing?" while staring at Bernard.
How are we doing?
The scene wraps up with no major evidence, and Charlotte rides off. Next we come to episode 4. A perfect hair, makeup, clothes, face Elsie is introduced after being tied to this cave with nothing but a bucket and protein bars for 3 to 5 days. How? Again, no way that they would overlook this detail. No dressing team on the face of the planet is going, "Okay, what's the backstory? 3 to 5 days in a cave, shitting in a bucket. All right, perfect face, perfect makeup, no dishevelment at all," and nailed it. She gets free and starts asking questions about what happened here. She learns about the game and what Ford did, finishes that "I'm not going to brick you because I'd need more information from you." We see his flashbacks, which if now seen by Delos in the present, would help paint the picture of how their own systems went down. This entire scene and all the flashbacks to follow really only tell us the same thing, that these are all questions Delos could use to construct an understanding of what happened and where the data went, or where the potentially awakened hosts have gone off to. The number of questions we see every single person asking Bernard is unusual. Always studying his response, always asking him to remember. The way he finishes the sentence and sees the same things multiple times. Everything. All makes perfect sense if he was being probed for information while inside the simulator. I think think the reason that they're doing it multiple times is because he does have a corrupted control unit and gets lost in his own memories, making it hard to extract data from. So instead of spinning it up on a little tablet that the engineer states is volatile, they want to take him back to the lab where a contrast exists, a secure facility called a Cradle where they know it's a safe place to observe and extract this information. But alas, we come to the end of the video and I'm curious to know what you guys think. Is my tinfoil hat on too tight, or could this be the answer to explain all of the oddities with Bernard? If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more. If you're interested in supporting me further, you can join the Patreon community like the prestigious Robert Holtz, John Levin, and Chris Cole. But with that, guys, much love to everybody, thank you for watching, and I can't wait to see you next time.